now we're going to switch over to Amanda from Apollo GraphQL. She's going to be talking about the MCP tools you can create with GraphQL. So, all right, take it away, Amanda.
All right, let's see. Let me know when my screen is being shared. Oh, perfect. I see it. All right, so I've got a couple of demos for you today I'm really excited about. I'm going to start out with a very fully open source flavor of using the Apollo MCP server, and then show you something that I built with my team for our MCP server community. So this right here, this repo that we're looking at is the Apollo MCP server. It is written against the MCP spec in Rust specifically for exposing GraphQL operations as MCP tools. And this is MIT licensed. You can go ahead and use it. So I just wanted to show you that real quick, but let's get into the code here. Where do I have it? All right. So here is a simple project setup. You can see that I have, actually, let me zoom in here for y'all. You can see that I have the binary for the MCP server kind of dropped right here in the root, and you can play around this way. If you think that you're going to be working on something that you're going to want to deploy, though, we do have this shipped as a Docker image, and that's also how we deploy our servers. So that's the way to go if you're doing anything other than just maybe like testing and exploring. But for today, we just have that binary dropped right here in the root. We're going to be looking at the GitHub GraphQL API today, which is just enormous. Like, you don't want to have to deal with this thing yourself if you can help it. So VibeCoding is a great place for that. This is a great time to use that. For the MCP server, you do get to kind of configure it for what you want to do, what you want to expose. What I want to call attention to in here, in my configuration today, is there's a search and execute tool available to you. And these are the kind of tools that you're going to need to expose to your agent to be able to have this VibeCoding experience. And I'll show you what I mean here shortly, but I did want to show you these are features that you can configure, so you don't have to use those. So let's go ahead and start the MCP server. I'm just pointing at that binary and my configuration file. All right, that's ready to go. And then I'm going to start up the inspector, the model context protocol inspector, and that's ready to go now too. All right, let's always want to test and make sure everything's connected. We're using streamable HTTP and the URL here with the MCP at the end, so make sure that you're pointing to those things. And we are connected, and there's those two tools available, so we're ready to go. We're not going to use those here though. Just wanted to make sure everything was up and running. You never know. My code has gone away. Let's grab it and bring it back. Where is it? Okay. All right, so this is where we get into more of the fun part here. So what we're going to use today for this is Goose. Goose is another open source product. This is an AI agent that you can configure. It's a really fun tool. We like using it here at Apollo. So if you haven't seen it before, highly recommend checking out their documentation. And you'll see how it works a little today. I'm using the AWS Bedrock model, Claude 3.7. You can configure whatever you want. This is just how I have it configured today. So now that we have our server running, we've also exposed our server in Goose. You can configure it for extensions. That's Goose's name for MCP tools. So we already have that all configured here. So now I can ask Goose to do some work for me, right? And what I want Goose to do here today is to I need to fetch the latest 5 issues from the Apollo GraphQL. We'll do the rover repository and write the operation to a GraphQL file. So I want Goose to make me my GraphQL query. Now, Goose only has those 2 tools I showed you right now. So it's going to start grabbing the search tools. Now here, of course, is entering in a little bit of LLM magic. You don't really know how many times it's going to search. Sometimes it's really concise and it can do it in a couple of searches. Sometimes it needs to find a few more to complete your task. And you can play around with the specificity of your prompts to try to get the best results out of Goose or whatever agent that you're using. The search tool is a better implementation of introspection. So essentially, it's allowing you to search through a really large repo like this with by using those keywords that you gave it. And Goose is really getting deep in here, but this is a really big API. It's finding things. So this is kind of that unknown part, and definitely gets into the more kind of prompt engineering side. So it's possible I could have given it maybe a little more information and it would have gotten there a little faster. But this is part of working with agents. You do kind of get this happening. So introspection is also a way to crawl through GraphQL APIs, but this is going to be more efficient. So we definitely recommend that. Okay, it has switched over to the execute tool, which means it has developed a query. All right, and it already wrote our file too. That's great. Let's see if it's got anything else it wants to do. It seems like it's still thinking about something, but we do already have our file, so that's exciting. All right, it's just giving us a summary. Wonderful. So it took a little while to get to it. That is using a little bit more context than I'd like. So I'd work on a better prompt. If I was going to make a lot of these, right, I'd want to get a little more specific. But it made us our query, and it says that it works. It tested it with execute. This is what it made for us. Now, there's a few things I want to change in here. First of all, I am not happy with this as the name because I'm not going to just fetch rover issues. I'm going to make this a more generic tool. So let's say this will be, we'll just call it fetch GitHub issues. And we're going to drag this into the operations folder. Yes, I do. Now, you could have also added that to your prompt too, told GitHub exactly, or Goose exactly what you wanted to name it, told it where to stick the file. Again, you can kind of define those prompts however you like. But now we have this query. Now, just like you should do with anything that is vibe coded, we're going to go test this query and make sure we're happy with it too. And the best way I like to do that with GitHub, at least, is GitHub has a Explorer that they have signed me out of. All right, let's get back in. So this is just the GitHub docs. They expose this area to kind of play with your queries. So we're going to check it and see what it gives us back. All right, it definitely is working. And now from here, I want to change a few little things. Goose named this query a little bit generic for me. I want it to be really specific, that it's going to get the latest 5 issues. And then I also want to pass in variables because we're not going to leave these values here either. That was just for the initial prompt. So we're going to add owner. It's going to be a string, and it's required. We're also going to add repo name, and that's also a required string. Now we can replace these values with that owner and with that repo name. The other thing I'd like to do is just add a description. This will also be given as context for your tool to your agent of choice once it's exposed. So this will get the latest 5 issues from owner, repo name, repository. All right. So now I'm happier with this. Let's go back to our code. Now, something I want to show you that's really cool. Let's go back to where so this is the tool Goose made, right? Get latest issues. So I'm going to put my updates in here, save them, and immediately my version is hot reloaded into this, which is really sweet. It's a really fast dev experience. I really like it. Now we're going to go back to the inspector. So now let's clear these tools and list them again. We can see our newest tool here. We're going to test it out here. That's our owner. Let's try a different repo this time. Let's go with router. All right, that worked. What's in here? Okay, so I don't love the query Goose made. I feel like there's a little more in here than I need. So let's go back to our code for a second. I don't really need this URL. And I don't need all these labels. That's not really giving me any value, right? And that's the thing about this. You don't want to return a bunch of garbage. All right, we've hot reloaded. You want to return only what like your agent needs and your end user needs. You want to make everything as concise as possible. And this makes that really easy. Hot reload is there. So now I don't have to reload anything at this point. I can just run the tool again and double check that everything, yeah, I got rid of those labels, got rid of that URL. Beautiful. That is exactly what I wanted to do. You can, while this is live, add, remove fields, do whatever you need to do. You can also even completely revoke access to this tool just by moving it out of here or deleting it. I don't need it, so I'm going to just delete it. And now when you run this tool, it doesn't exist. And when you relist the tools, you can see that they are back to those original 2 tools. So you can really work really fast here to get everything configured the way you want. It's a really fast way to get up and running with an existing GraphQL API. You layer the server on top and you can just generate API or tool after tool after tool. And especially as you kind of fine tune those prompts and get it exactly what you wanted, then you have to do less work too to get these where they need to go. And again, this is all open source. Every tool that I just use are open source tools. So you can use this with or without other Apollo based tools. Now, I want to show you one other implementation of our Apollo MCP server. So let me shut these guys down here. Is everybody shut down? Shut everything down. Okay, we are good to go there. And then I'm going to grab another repo here for you. So we have an MCP server builder series community that we actually just finished our second event in New York. Let me run this API. Hold on one second. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Let's get this over here too. Run this. And run this server. Okay. This should reload in a moment. There we go. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you. I couldn't talk and do this at the same time, but I'll show you what's in these guys in just a minute. Get this out of the way. All right, so we've been working in the MCP community and kind of working on building space and creating space for MCP builders. Like the conversation about elicitations a little bit ago, like you sometimes don't even know what happened yesterday in this world. And so if you're really into it, you want a place to be able to gather, whether virtually on live streams like this or in person. We actually have an event tonight in San Francisco. So if you're watching from San Francisco, we do have some more spaces and would love to have you. But we, in the spirit of this kind of, we're all building and learning together, we wanted to also have a tool built on the MCP server that we can evolve with the community, but the community can also use. So that's the last thing I'm going to show you. Let's see, I should be up and running here. All right. So right now, it's a fairly simple tool. We wanted to start very lightweight and kind of evolve it with the spec and with the needs of the community. You can submit a talk, manage your talks to update them, see what other people are submitting. And then we recently added just getting all events with speaking sessions. So like this was an event we had in June, and you can get back and see all of this content that you might have missed and kind of see what's going on in the community. Now, let me tell you a little bit about how we built this under the hood, just to give you another kind of flavor of how you can work with the Apollo MCP server. All right, let's get this out of the way. So I started in the, I started this with Supabase. And the reason I reached for Supabase is because I really like the way that they expose each table through PostgREST to make these REST APIs. Because I knew I wanted to use the REST API resources primarily just directly, that I didn't need to do a lot of management with these APIs. I didn't want to do a lot of management with these API results. I just wanted to use them from my database. So I was able to use Apollo connectors. And I'll show you kind of what that query that we just did for those events with the sessions connected, what that looks like in here. So I have my base URL for Supabase here, and you get one of those if you make a Supabase database. And then right under it, you'll notice I defined my event type. And I defined the fields that I want from that table. And then I also, you'll notice this, I added those sessions in. And what's really cool about this is event is its own table and own API, and so are sessions. But I'm able to orchestrate those two together into one query and one tool call, which is a much better experience and it's much more efficient. So this is the kind of the background of that particular tool. And then down here, you'll see the actual get events query. Now, the other part of this, there were some things that I wanted to do custom. So this is, the REST connectors are really great if you have an existing REST resource, you just want to call it, map it to your types, use everything as is, but sometimes you do need to write your own logic, right? So you need to be a little more flexible. And for that, I used Apollo Server. Now, you don't need to see all that. This is teeny tiny. In Apollo Server, I made a JavaScript API. It's really lightweight. It's really basic. It's just for like the validation of the submissions right now. And I can add on to this as we have more needs. I'm not going to get into everything that I'm doing here, but this is for submission validation to manage those proposals that are coming in. And I used JavaScript and exposed it via Apollo Server as a GraphQL API. And now that schema that's pointing to Supabase, and this one can talk to each other and work together and be exposed as my tools. One thing to note, though, you don't have to use JavaScript here. We do have, if I could spell. All right, there we go. All right, so we have templates for lots of different languages. I know a lot of you are building in Python, or if you were better than me and started with TypeScript instead of JavaScript, I will probably migrate this at some point. We have all these templates ready to go for you, so you can, if you want to expose an API that you have to GraphQL to be able to layer it into the MCP tools via our server, we have a lot to get you up and running very quickly. And this will evolve alongside the community. One thing that I do want to call out is that this virtual session here that'll be coming up on the 14th, we're going to be layering in OAuth into that server as well. So we're building it with the community and alongside it, and then you can use it at every stage with every evolution of this server, which is really cool. So to wrap up about what you saw today, Apollo MCP server is fully open source. You can use it over top of any existing GraphQL API out there. If you want to build from scratch, you want to build more things, we do have REST API connectors, which are going to be the fastest way for you to expose a REST API to GraphQL. And we have Apollo Server to get you up and running with your APIs that bring some custom logic into that. So really, however you want to build, if you're trying to expose to GraphQL, which is a really great way to interact with agents, you can find kind of your path here and pick and choose what tools are best for your use case. And that's all I have, unless my hosts have any questions here.
Yeah, well, I don't really have any questions, but I just want to comment. I just think this is just so good. I've not seen this before. And I love the kind of the user experience and whatnot, but it really touches on some key things that make MCP unique, or why you need to kind of even look at this layer, because a lot of people, initially when MCP was kind of announced, people were like, oh, I'll just take my existing open API schemas and turn it into MCP, or I already have a database, I'll just fire SQL, So what's really cool is this, what you guys did it's so slick and easy, but even just learning this pattern of, it's kind of look, our goal is really to get AI access to the data and services we already have, but we have to build this intermediate layer that's almost more of a use case driven layer, not a kind of a raw fine grain. It's more coarse grain. So it's your ability to kind of create these almost stored procedures, so it's, be able to take your existing data and then just form it into ways. So
yeah, it's just nicer on the context window. You don't want to dump a bunch of stuff in there.
But you really, because what happens when you get down to building these tools is you really don't want to just be because some people are well, I'll just give AI access to everything and then magic will happen. And it's no, unfortunately, you really need to look more at what do you want the user to be doing? What are the end goals? Kind of what are and then tailor the tools to those to give AI just what it needs.
Yeah, you really have to build from the user and agent experience now first.
Yeah.
You have to think of like, how are these two users interacting with that, and go from what they really need to function and what they're really looking for. And then, yeah, what questions are they trying to answer? And it's definitely, I'd say, yeah, it's a learning curve. I feel like I learn something new every day with like, even just like how to prompt Goose to get what I want as efficiently as possible. Like it's fun.
Yeah, and the cool thing also about MCP is, so it's like with your tool, it's like, oh, I can build these queries really fast, right? But it's like, oh, maybe I need to create these other MCP tools that have a little bit more code and logic in them. But with MCP, it's so nicely composable that it's like, oh, well, I could use, the Apollo GraphQL, MCP server, for these things, because I just need quick data access. Hearing that you guys are adding OAuth is super cool.
Yeah, we're excited.
The next thing is like, what's the, how to control that end to end. But yeah, I think it's exciting. Like, I think what you guys done is really neat. And then just that pattern, you can kind of extrapolate to a lot of other things too. It's just, you guys really hit on a good approach. So yeah. I was just neat. I just really enjoyed.
Awesome.
There. Yeah. Oh.
Thanks, Amanda. Well, hopefully we get some more late signups for your event this evening.
Yeah.
And if people want to try it out, we'll add the link to everything in the description for the video.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Amanda, and thank you everybody for tuning in today. This concludes this week's episode of The Context, but we'll be back same place, same time next week. Next week, we'll be talking to Daisy Health and MCP managers. So hope everybody can tune in again. Otherwise, have a great day. We'll see you all next time.